Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. Now, welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. We now commence the discussion proper. And let me start with Soju Mashood, a chieftain of the NNPP. One of the emerging, political parties ahead of the 2023 elections. Your party, the NNPP, has produced its standard bearer in person of Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. But as it is, just like other political parties, you are also shopping, for a running mate. There has been a lot of, concerns, a lot of permutations, a lot of calculations ahead of this very important exercise. Some are looking at the regional configuration, some are looking at the chances, the support base, others are looking at the national question and what have you. How is your party coping with this challenge?
Yes, thank you very much. New Nigerian People's Party, you can see how comes 2023, from the national movement, like minds came together, and for the future of this great nation, Nigeria, we arrive and meet at a point to come on with, after a lot of scrutinizing, to select the best of among the political parties to have a better platform to see where we can contest a credible election and win election towards 2023. We thank God Almighty, as you said earlier, that Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the former Minister of Defense, former two-time governor of Kano State, emerged as the flag bearer of the New Nigeria People's Party on his antecedents and a lot of track record about him. Come 2023, we have to be realistic. We have done a lot of mistakes at past as citizens of this country. How do we select our leaders? What are the areas of selection? We do a lot about sentiments. It's over. A lot of mistakes. We need to be very careful come 2023.
So what are the yardstick for NNPP, for instance? What are you looking at?
Yes, that is where I'm going. Now, our strength has always been, if you see the politics of Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, he has been a grassroots politician. Our strength has been the masses of this country. And come 2023, the opinions of Nigeria is speaking towards our direction, as we are saying, that the masses, you hear this saying, Obi and Kwankwaso. You can see what is happening also to Obi now, that we have been moving, having a very strong movement for very long, which Kwankwaso has launched for many years back in Nigeria, which is Kwankwasia movement, a very strong grassroots. Similar thing Obi is coming up with now, a very strong movement in Nigeria. To my own opinion also, if they both can come together and agree on a point, that is what has been Nigerian opinions at present.
Yeah, but they've failed to come together before they emerge. Anyway, we will talk about that. I understand there was a meeting between the two of them before they even go into the race. Before they emerge as candidates. What led to the collapse of those talk? That talk in the past. We'll talk about that. But let me engage Dr. Nusa Tanko.
Yes.
Yes. The other aspect of it is that one thing has become prominent in recent time. This issue of same-faith ticket, the Muslim ticket or Christian ticket. You're just coming, rising up from from a press conference where you talked about the June 12, specifically about one of the freest and the fairest election Nigeria has ever conducted. 1993 and 2003, years apart, so to speak. But then, it seems the narrative have changed, so to speak. Before now, we're talking about competence, credibility, and what have you. Nobody is talking about regional configuration or religious politics or whatever. Today, it has taken prominence. even as we celebrate June 12 as one of the freest and the fairest election, some of these features might not likely be palatable at the time we speak. What do you think has changed, over the years? Why are Nigerians so engrossed in this regional politicking, religious politicking, and what have you?
Before the 2015 general election, I think that's President Jonathan's era, there had been this accusation and counter-accusation that the level of insecurity was so prevalent in the north to a point that people felt that probably some of government agents were involved in all of this in order to cripple the northern part of this country. And so therefore, it becomes a story that generated in the hearts of a lot of people. And so the idea of the former president, that's Umar Musa Yar'Adua,
Late.
yes, who was able to, create a kind of a gap and closing in the gap within the upsurge of the Niger Delta people and all of those ones. There was serious agitations as regard to we want to control our resources. There was agitation from the South, we want to have state policing and all. The North Central is agitating that we are not being carried along despite the religious and tribal sentiment. So the whole country was polarized.
You mean 1993 or prior
No.
to?
Prior to 1993, come 2015, all of these things were prevailing and continuously they are allowed to expand. You remember very well at a point in time they were talking about Nigeria is going to break into pieces even before.
There are several of such projections, 93, 2015, and so on and so
yes,
forth.
because we are talking about factors that must have led to all of this trust deficit. Because what we are seeing is the trust deficit that has led to problem of leadership recruitment problem. So, as it were now, a lot of people do not trust each other. Now, if the leadership that has taken over during the Yar'Adua era, who have actually survived and done a lot of good in trying to unite the country together, when it was the Jonathan era, there was still this chemistry of divides within the system. People still believe that if it's not my own area, there was this particular nepotism and all of those things that had happened. So instead of the next regime, which is the present regime that we have, to have melt these two together, it ended up expanding it. With some of the statements that probably alluded to Mr. President as regard to 5% of people vote for me and all of those ones that they are generalizing and all the appointment that take place and the appointment of people from certain part of the country, those who form the cabal and all of those ones, the insecurity nature, all of this one help in widening the gap. And when the gap is widened, the issue of merit becomes second fiddle. It now becomes, it must be south or north. We once had the June 12 ticket where we had a Muslim. Nobody thought of anything about Christian and probably Muslim. It was purely on merit. And politics is about the game of numbers. But today, we're not talking about numbers anymore. We're talking about,
Is it that the numbers do not count or what?
They do count, but the issue of marginalization has taken supreme, even it's been sold to a lot of people, that we are being marginalized. And so therefore, all the political party must bring their candidate from certain part of the country. And that infuriates a lot of people. Rather than saying, look, it is morally right that it's a Nigerian project, all of us must have taste of power. Let's see some of the people that can help in uniting this country. So the gaps have widened to a level that people don't trust each other anymore. So, and that becomes a problem for these 2023 general elections. Because if care is not taken as regard to how we produce the leaders that is being seen to taking care of all of the other side of the country, we may have a lot of problems.
Well, even though some political parties are neck bent, in defying perhaps, some of these challenges or these possible outcomes, some are beginning to advance for the need for Nigerians to do away with all of these sentiments and what have you. But we know it's a bit difficult to do that. Your political party, the NNPP, is also, entrapped in this cycle, trying to find a balance, strike a balance. You talked about earlier on the possible coming together of these two gladiators who apparently, pull out of the PDP, the major opposition PDP, one at the tail end, talking about Peter Obi, a few days to the convention, Rabi Musa Konkoso some few months before then. But they belong to the same political party. And now they are beginning to think about, coming together. But one thing that has remained a challenge based on our background checks is the fact that none of them is ready to shift grounds. Everyone wants to be the candidate, not a running mate. How do you intend, you're part of the arrangement to get this.
Yeah.
How are you finding this
Yes,
challenge?
like what I just mentioned earlier, that these opinions of Nigerians, and as I told you earlier that our strength is the masses. We believe the direction of the masses, what they want is what we want. But he, His Excellency Senator Rabi Musa Konkoso himself, I know a lot of consultations are going on. Not he saying this is what he wants as a person, but one, it will be the decision of the party and the stakeholders of the party and other like minds. But sometimes when we see the directions of the Nigerians, we also believe we be convinced to say, okay, let's move, let's shift ground to what Nigerians are.
So how are you feeling
for.
the pulse of Nigerians? What do you think is the direction?
Yes, the direction of Nigeria now, everywhere all over the social media now, like what we are saying is, I think we are just from a meeting from my brother also, a very strong meeting with like minds that on what is going on viral on the social media about Konkoso Obi for 2023.
Thank you very much for staying with us. And now the discussion proper. Baba Martins, just coming back from, let's start with that because we have to look at the latest happenings around. I know that the two contending forces very much engaged with the politics of, choosing their running mates. Political parties and the presidential candidates have been interfacing at the other level. Even President Muhammadu Buhari is meeting with governors and so on and so forth. From the PDP front, there has been a lot of, speculations around who could emerge the running mate. There were names that have been put forward, in the public domain, but let me allow you to lead us into this intrigues and, of course, the permutations around that.
Okay. Good evening, viewers. Good evening. As it's in the public domain already that INEC has given the political parties up to Friday, and that is the 17th, to come up with the names of their running mates to the presidential candidates. And the parties are, as you can expect, there are intrigues, there are meetings, there are horse trading consultations going on between the contending forces, between the presidential candidates and those that are interested in being the running mates and other organs of the party. Let me, on the PDP side for now, but like you said, the president is meeting with governors on the,
that is on the other hand.
On the other hand, but on the PDP side, what we know, a committee was put up to look at the names of possible running mates to the presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, and the committee came up with some names, which the party is still studying, and hopefully before Friday, the party will come up with the names of, with the particular name of the running mate to Atiku. And one thing is really interesting because, you know, in the last election, Atiku was the candidate of
the party, 2019, yeah.
And then, you know, before you know what's happening, he came out with his, the name of running mate.
Peter Obi,
former governor of Anambra, Peter Obi, who is now in another trying to lock horns with Atiku Abubakar. But for this time, the candidate and the party had actually put in place a high-level consultation, and which is ongoing. And we believe that just like even the chairman of the party recently said, they are looking at some of these issues, and then the party intends to come out with a name that is accepted.
We'll finally decide
to all the parties.
Okay.
Yes.
I understand we have to take a break, perhaps to bring in our guest who is joining us via Skype. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics. And of course, today we're looking at the politics of the money bags, particular reference to 2023 general elections. And just like I said earlier on, we'll be joined by Salahuddin Hashim, who is going to talk to us via Skype. And of course, in the studio, we have Dr. Abubakar Kari, who is also a political sociologist, and of course the Dean Student Affairs of the University of Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay, let's go to Salahuddin, who has been online to join us. Salahuddin, if you're there, thank you for joining us. Yes. I'm sure you've been following the political developments right from the emergence of the political the presidential flag bearers of the political parties. Let me get your assessment. So far, we've seen those have emerged across these political parties. Was your expectation met? What do you think Nigerians have gotten in terms of choices ahead of this 2023 elections?
Thank you. I think I would like with the fact that Nigeria left with bad choices, created a debt around this. The political climate is cloudy. It is cloudy because of the attitude of our stakeholders and those who are currently playing. And of course, it played out over the recent primaries that we have seen. And the danger is that the level of greed that we have seen that is being played by has created a very process. But what we now see is the fact that vote buying and of course has crept into our political lexicon. And since it has come in, it has become one of the very bad choices that we are left with. And of course, the implication here, the grave implication is that Nigeria brand of democracy from a government of the people, by the people and for the people, to that of the rich, for the rich and juggernauts. That is what they call plutocracy. And if you like, you call it plutocracy. It is actually a society that is ruled and controlled by people of great wealth and income. And that is actually a great danger for our political climate, political atmosphere, if we do not rescue it. We have from the beginning how political parties have actually brought up a very huge humongous amount as prizes that were being tagged, which tells us very clearly that our political offices are now up for sale. 100 million naira in a country where 3 million people below poverty line is indeed a very worrisome development that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to. Political actors and political discussants should begin to get worried. Because it's now very obvious and very clear that everything that concerns politics in this country is up for sale. And the root cause for all of these political woes stem from the humongous cost of our public office. And the danger would be that for anybody who had spent this much is actually seeing it as an investment. And
yes,
if you do an investment in everything,
yes, Salahuddin, you talked about the role played by our delegate system in throwing up these candidates that we're seeing today, and perhaps from your estimation that Nigerians are left with what you call bad choices or so. But then there's also some level of encouragement, some would say, in the part of INEC with regards to the transformation that was brought into the electoral process. And of course, the level of awareness and advocacy that is going on. It appears Nigerians are also rising up to the occasion, perhaps to change the narratives. We've seen people scrambling, for PBCs and what have you. And then there has been also a lot of enlightenment going on with regards to, telling Nigerians to do away or to shun this money politics and ensure that they do the right thing. Shouldn't this give us some level of encouragement that beyond what we see, the electorate can still do the needful in terms of bringing about the kind of leadership they want?
Yeah, I agree with you very clearly, but you agree with me that if a very good candidate didn't make it to become a flag bearer in the first place, whatever amount of PVC you get, you have to make with good choices. And that for me is the beginning selection process, and that in itself had actually demonstrated in our recent experience to let us know that yes, INEC is actually one of the very heavily reformed institution of government in the last 1 decade. And I'm to INEC, they have dedicated themselves to transformation and of course moving away from the analog system to something that is globally acceptable. But the fact is that if within the primaries, the democratic process does not just begin at the ballot. It begins from the time the itself throws up available candidates, okay? And if it fails in its responsibility to provide capacity and capability and provide efficiency and provide us with a leadership that is actually forward-looking. What we would have as a byproduct and the consequence of money politics or the politics of money, depending on which one is very convenient for, is the fact that we have leaders that are successful, inept, that are ineffective, that are clueless, and people who will continue to hunt for our public commonwealth. And that is exactly the challenge that we have. So if political parties internally have failed us in terms of providing us with good choices, then citizens have an option. Citizens can, for instance, go in and make political, and that's why during the amendment of the Electoral Act, people were very concerned, particularly the civil society, and were actually saying that, look, the provision for direct primaries should also be left open. Yes, we might think it is very costly, we might think it is bureaucratic, we might think it is difficult, but the options are there that parties and members, card-carrying members within a political party can now make available choices. If that is not the case continually, we will continue to just borrow money from banks, and if anybody who invests money in it will see it as something that he needs to withdraw from.
Thank you for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, and today our talking point is an election without President Buhari on the ballot. And having in the studio right now, Mr. Kehinde Modu, and of course, Mr. Fidelis Maklever. Let me start with Mr. Fidelis. Yes, President Muhammadu Buhari is not new, to the nation's electoral landscape. Looking at the fact that, he has been contesting to lead the country since 2003, 2007, 2011, and finally he was able to realize his dream in 2015. Now is in his last lap, of his 8 years tenure. His stewardship is gradually coming to an end. If you look back at President Muhammadu Buhari, his dispositions before the 2015 elections, and now that he is on the saddle for 7 years, and your assessment, what would you remember the president for instance?
Well, like you rightly say, the president is not new in the contest for, the presidential race in the country. He has had a shot at it 4 times before he eventually, emerged victorious. And within the period he had been in power so far, when he came, he itemized his areas of focus, which were reduced into 3 broad areas: fighting corruption, insecurity, and
grabbing the economy.
The economy. Well, one can say yes, some progress have been made. In the area of corruption, he was able to secure some convictions and made some, progress. But a lot still needs to be done. There are some politicians who ordinarily, some would say, are like the sacred cows, were convicted. Some governors, former governors inclusive. But then by the end of the day, there was also that problem or, criticism from people that at least some people were also asked to, freed, So some progress has been made in that regard. And then in the area of the economy, I am not very sure whether the economy is, improving the way it should, or even though still some progress may have been made, So in a nutshell, I would say, well, in the Buhari may be remembered as one person who had consistently fought to rule the country. Eventually he came in, and then he's having his last, tenure. And so that doggedness of,
the tenacity at which he pursued his ambition.
And then eventually he was able to get it. And well, he has tried his best, but the challenges that Nigeria has are still there. So it's only hope that the person who is coming to succeed him will step in from where he had stopped and then be able to move the country forward from where we are currently.
Okay, we've had, an X-ray kind of, or a review of the promises and where we are. Mr. Kehinde Amodu, looking at the political front, before he eventually won the 2015 election, President Muhammadu Buhari has been consistent about also criticizing, so to speak, the nation's electoral process, and of course the seeming gaps, within. And then same, with also the judicial processes, after he lost the 2023, the 2007, 2003 and 2007, and even 2011, he went to court.
Yes.
And he talks about the judicial process as being one that is notoriously, you know, kind of delayed justice and what have you. Since he came into power to now, what has changed? Has anything changed, you know, in this trajectory?
Well, we can talk about an INEC that has become more technology driven. We can talk about electoral reforms that have come in. There have been, in each of his tenures, there's been electoral reforms that have been forwarded. We have to note that President Buhari has competed against every president in this democratic dispensation.
Yeah, 1999 to date.
1999 to date. And on each and at every point in which he contested and lost then, he went to court, he criticized the process, he brought up things that he thought should be changed in the process. Have they changed? That's the question.
Yeah.
And yes, you can say you have a more forward-looking INEC. Yes, we can talk about him not interfering in cases, and then that's where it now comes up to where we are today. His policy of non-interference in the political process, even if it hurts his political associates, is one thing that you could say is a plus in the political process.
But is that total? Because at some point we've seen some level of, you know, interjection. Let's take, for instance, the emergence of the national chairman of the party, you know, the primary that brought new leadership of the APC. He sort of provided a direction. And again, he also promised that he want to also provide a direction for the who emerge, you know, flag bearer of the party until it turns out, you know, the other way around. Then you think he has been also, despite his disposition with regards to allowing, you know, an open and democratic process, he also has some interest in it?
No, you have to look at his predecessor. Compare him to his predecessor. His predecessor spent 5 years in office and went through 6 PDP chairmen within that 5 years. You understand? So that is an average of 1 chairman a year, then an extra. 1 chairman spent 10 months in office. You understand? So you can look at
compared
to him,
his predecessor.
You can look at the way he has interfered. Yes, I'm not saying that he hasn't interfered. Yes, he's interfered in the process. He's interfered in the process when the process looks as if it's about to collapse, like we had in the APC chairman. We had a chairman of a committee that didn't want to go, and then we had national working committee members
that were
loggerheads with the man that didn't want to go. So he had to step in. It also happened when Adams Oshiomhole also stepped down.
That's right.
He had to step in. But if you look at his philosophy, he's not a person that had been hands-on on the party, unlike his predecessors. His predecessors, all the presidents behind him have tinkered, except perhaps for Yar'Adua, who was not well, so he didn't have that much opportunity and time to tinker with the party processes.
So it is safe to say that it is not the same President Muhammadu Buhari that we know, you know, during the military era. You know, the concerns have been before, I mean, when he emerged in 2015, that there's likelihood Nigerians will see that autocratic, you know, tendencies and what have you. So with, from the points, you know, Mr. Kehinde is making is that we've seen a different President Muhammadu Buhari, a more democratic President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been allowing processes to take place, especially in our democratic experiment.
Definitely, you know, under the democratic environment, there is no way he would completely remain, you know, autocratic in governing according to the principles of the military. Even he himself, when he came on board, I think he said yes. he is no longer in the military, and that under democracy, there are processes and procedures. There is also the constitution that allows for democratic governance to be, to take place. So definitely, he is not, or he has never been the same person as it were when he was in the military, because probably because circumstances will not allow that, and himself too, I think, he may have found himself in an environment that he definitely has to allow for the practice of democracy to take place. So his actions and policies and all of that
would have to align.
He has to align with the democratic tenets.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to Daily Politics on Trust Television. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Ayuba Ilia. First, let's start with the news making headline. The People's Democratic Party presidential flag bearer, Atiku Abubakar, has picked Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as his running mate ahead of the 2023 presidential election. Addressing members of the Board of Trustees at the party headquarters on Thursday, Atiku said he consulted with all organs of the party. Atiku says he decided to pick the Delta State Governor among those recommended because he personifies not only the seriousness the current moment represents for the country, but also the future that young people yearn for and deserve. Take a look.
Accordingly, let me state that the person I have chosen as my running mate possesses those identified qualities. He personifies not only the seriousness the current moment represents for our country, but also the future that our young people yearn for and also deserve. He is a serving governor who has demonstrated in his state and through his conduct that governance is about service to the people. I know that he will not only add excitement to our already energized ticket and campaign, but will also help to bring focus, discipline, and stability to our government come 2023. I am pleased, therefore, to announce here my choice of running mate who will help to lead us to victory next year, not only in the presidential election, but also in the governorship and legislative elections. And he will be by my side as I work hard every day to provide our people with security, revive our economy, improve education, and unite our country. He has both legislative and executive experiences. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the ticket the next Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Governor Ifeanyi Arthur Okowa.
Now, with barely 48 hours to the Ekiti governorship election, aspirants are expected to round up campaigns today. With the signing into law of the new electoral law by President Muhammadu Buhari in February, the Ekiti governorship election is the first major election the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, will be conducting with the new law in place. Therefore, it is expected to serve as a litmus test ahead of the 2023 presidential elections. Today on Daily Politics, we will be discussing the Electoral Act and its implementation in the Ekiti State governorship election. Joining me to discuss more on this is Mr. Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst, and he's here with me in the studio. And all the way from Ekiti State, joining us via phone is Ariodare Atoye. He'll be talking to us about the mood in Ekiti State. We also have Professor Motiala Olasupo, the Director, Institute for Peace, Leadership and Development Studies at the University of Abuja. He joins us virtually to also give perspectives to this issue. So this is the time where we get into the conversation. But before we talk about Ekiti State politics, let me welcome all our guests to the program.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Prof, thank you for joining us. Choice of the what do you call it now? The presidential flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party, picking Okoye as his running mate.
I think it's a master stroke for Atiku in consultation with PDP leadership to have picked Delta State governor. It comes with a pedigree of a grassroots politician, started his political career as secretary to a local government, graduated to becoming the chairman of a Kanot local government, and later on served as SSG, that is secretary to the state government. He was 3-time commissioner in Delta State, also elected senator of the Federal Republic from the same Delta State, resigned to go and contest in 2011 and lost. But in 2015, he was lucky to pick the nomination and then became the governor. So he's serving us his second and final term. And you know, the part of Delta where Senator Ifeanyi Otto Okowa is from is regarded as Delta Igbo. You know, he's from the Delta North. I happen to have served in Delta State, so Ika North and South, that's the Agbo axis down to Iseluku, down to Asaba. They are all regarded as Delta Igbo. So it's a bridge between, in fact, there is only the River Niger bridge that separated Delta State from Anambra State. So it's an hybrid between South and Southeast. And when you look at, he's also a medical doctor. He was into public, he was a public servant before he joined politics. So when you look at all of that pedigree, he has both executive and legislative experience. And you can't, I mean, for somebody who started his political career from local government, rising up to become the state governor, and if God wills, will become vice president, he comes fully prepared.
All right. All right, then. Because of our guests joining via phone, we'll just take a look at the Ekiti election before we come back to the reactions as regarding the picking of Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as running mate for Atiku. Now, Ario Dare Atoye, thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you very much. And I want to also add to what Mr. Jideojo has said in respect of making a very good choice. Actually, Governor Okowa is an hybrid, and he will serve as a pivotal pillar between South-South and the Southeast. I think it was a well-calculated political permutation to pick Governor Okowa. And if you look at his political activities and performance over the years, for the past 7 years that he has been the governor of Delta State, you will agree with me that he's a kind of person that do not have much controversy, if at all there is any. It wasn't brought to the national limelight. He's someone that has been performing his job creditably without any controversy. And you also agree with me that in the whole of South-South, Southeast, Okowa has been acknowledged as someone who combined intellectual agility with academic prowess when it's come to issue of governance. He's very sound, and his administrative acumen cannot be emphasized for the fact that if you've been in Delta State before, you will see the performance of this His Excellency, this gentle guy, which he has been doing for the past 7 years. And he's been loved by his people, and I believe he's going to bring a very credible electoral value to the table when it comes to the presidential election come 2023 with presidential flag bearer, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and pairing the two together, I think it will provide a convincing representation of Southeast for Okowa. So that's my view on that.
Right, now let's take a look at the permutations here. I mean, we've talked about his CV, he comes with, of course, a certain level of merit. But again, there are people who, believe that these are not the best of times for the PDP as regards its relationship with the Southeasterners and the South-South. Looking at the defection of people like Peter Obi and some of the leaders of the Southeast in the PDP. Of course, tying that too with the clamor for a Southeastern president. So will this be enough to woo the votes of the Southeast, in supporting the Atiku Okowa ticket?
Well, I think for me, this is the best they can get. Like I said, it's an hybrid between the South-South and Southeast. And, it's like Chibika Amechi saying, you should not deny him his Southeastern origin when he wanted to contest under APC, because part of River State also seems to believe that they are from South-South by ancestry, genealogically speaking. And Okowa is fairly young, is 62, and coming with that wealth of experience, you cannot, and there is no other person you want to pick in PDP that will be, because what Atiku and PDP are looking at is, with Peter Obi on the ballots under Labour Party, most Southeasterners will go for Peter Obi. So if they, and how many votes are there in the Southeast? There are more votes in South-South than there are in the Southeast. So they are doing those calculations, and you could see they have put APC in a dilemma. APC is struggling. It's less than 24 hours to the final. By 6 p.m. tomorrow, they have to submit names of the name of the running mate to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And they are finding that and the Christianity of Okowa is also an additional factor. He's a Christian from South-South, but with a touch of Southeastern Igbo origin, and then in terms of administrative acumen, he has it. In terms of academic qualification, in terms of wealth of experience, in terms of legislative and executive, experience, he has all of those.
Welcome back, viewers. This is Daily Politics. If you are just joining us on Trust Television, and it's now we're now going into the discussions, as we introduced earlier, around the issues of running mates for the political parties, for the candidates of the major political parties. But just before we get into the major discussion, can I quickly pick your brains around the issues relating to the Ekiti governorship election, which is on the eve right now, which is happening tomorrow. The APC is the ruling government in Ekiti. And, you had a very tumultuous primaries ending up with a candidate. How sure are you, Mr. Onyengi, that your party can retain Ekiti?
Well, I mean, I think we're on course. I think we've worked very hard, and I believe so much that, from the campaign, you could see the crowd, you could see the acceptability of the candidate as well. So I think it's the litmus test, of what we're going to see in the main election itself. I think we're going to retain APC, the government in Ekiti.
Okay, so he mentioned that it is a litmus test, which I want to agree with him. But in terms of litmus test, especially for you as opposition, the major opposition party going into the maybe the first major election since the victory of your candidates in the primaries of your party. How do you view the strength of PDP going into the Ekiti governorship election?
Thank you very much. I need to add that I'm the head of PR, public relations in Atiku Media Office.
Oh, thank you.
Ekiti is our forte. It's a place we've been to several times. And PDP is quite strong there. I see 3-horse race now in that place, so to say, with Ejine Oni on the ballot for SDP, with the PDP and the APC. The good news is that INEC is doing its best. We've seen the show of strength by the security, and with the electoral law and the use of the electronic transmission and the rest of it, nobody's going to have a lot of carnel voting. You know, the palm carnel kind of voting where you get millions of votes. I'm not expecting any party to have so much votes. There may not even be a clear winner at the first instance.
For the governorship election?
Yes, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, I'm just telling you. Because it's going to be very, it's going to be close, because since as soon as you get registered, you vote, and it's transmitted. And like INEC was saying, that you are likely that everybody's going to see it. There's a portal, they will announce soon that as you are voting, the result is counting, both in Ekiti and Abuja and on the net. So therefore, with the president of the security, one thing I could also see voters' apathy in terms with what happened in the war of recent. A lot of people are trying to avoid a large gathering. They don't want to be crowded in a place. But let's hopefully see what happens. There could be low turnout, but I think it's like you said, it's a litmus test for INEC and the voters as well.
Barrister Ndu, one issue is that a lot of times we focus on these two major parties, and then of course this election season we are seeing an upsurge of very vibrant third force, maybe other alternatives like your own party, the Labour Party. How is, maybe beyond just your party, how are these other parties aside these two gladiators going to show, what are the chances of these parties in this Ekiti election?
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I want to let you know that officially I'm not a member of Labour Party, but I'm supporting P2B.
Okay.
And in the forthcoming election.
Oh, but so then, as I said, how do you, that's why I said, for example, the chances of other parties other than these major ones.
The truth is that everybody is tired of these two political parties. That's the truth. APC and PDP. We are all tired. We are now looking at the candidates. What do you have? What do you have that APC and PDP don't have? So we are looking at the possibility of presenting fresh ideas. It's not about party. This election, both the one that is coming up, we must commend INEC so far for their efforts. But this election is not going to be based on party. It's not going to be based on political party. So the election that is coming up in Ekiti, like you rightly said, the chances of Segun Oni being the SDP candidates, his chances are high because of his certain incidents. I'm not holding brief for him. But what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't rule out the chances of other
parties other than
these two parties. You shouldn't rule out that chances.
Well, Ekiti is an interesting state. Aren't you apprehensive, especially because it is a state that is like a swinging state, kind of, from it is electoral antecedents in the past?
You see, one thing you need to understand about areas like Ekiti, Ondo, access is the level of awareness, education, as far as this country is concerned. They are not pushover people, the citizens around there. So, I mean, for me, like I keep saying, it's a litmus test. Sometimes, you could lose, sometimes you could win. But ordinarily, if you look at the spread, the two major political parties have the spread around that area, So for me, I still believe it's a litmus test for us as a party and for every other party, considering the fact that they are well-enlightened people. You know, they are people who knows where to go if they want to go. They know what to choose. They know the kind of conditions, the kind of thing they expect from the candidates, you know. So they are one of the most educationally advanced people in this country. You can't take it away from them, never.
Mr. Yusuf, there are issues around, you know, your primaries, which perhaps don't you think that those will spill over into, you know, your support for among voters in Ekiti State? What I was talking about having a southern candidate. There have been a lot of talks that PDP disappointed, according to some section of commentators, that you people disappointed the southern Nigerian populace because they had expected you to zone the presidency to the region. Don't you think that the outcome of the primaries, presidential primaries, will affect your chances in Ekiti?
Thank you very much. I'm from Ondo State. Ekiti used to be part of Ondo State. And one fact that is clear is this: every politics is local. As at now, nobody's talking about presidential. People in Ekiti are going to be voting as per how much is left in their pocket. How much is do they have fuel? Do they have security? The universities are closed because it is not for it's fountain of knowledge. Universities have been shut down for over 6 months. That puts Ekiti people in serious disarray because this is a community where you have average of a doctor per house. So now people will be talking about that. People cannot go to their farms. These are the things that people will be voting along. It's not about whether this party or that party. People will see that a party that's in government that cannot protect the people. With the incident that happened in what do you call it, in our war of recent, everybody's aware, everybody's panicking. So these are the things that people vote along. So it's not an issue of voting, what do you call it, zoning or no zoning. Don't forget that former Governor Fayose was a formidable force in Ekiti, and it's part of the PDP. It's about the PDP winning, not about whether it's not a presidential thing. Every politics is local.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a short break at this moment. We've been discussing the Ekiti governorship election, but when we come back, we'll delve more into the 2023 presidential election and the issue of running mates, especially the choice of the three major parties that are represented this evening on the program.